thoughts are going to be a reflection of what you love most. What consumes you here consumes you here. So you can ask yourself, and everyone is aware, what do you think about most? What are you spending your entire day worrying about? What is it related to? What do you think about while you're praying? Because, most of the time it's not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're praying to Him, but our heart is thinking about everything else. Our heart is thinking about our children or our husband or whatever's in the oven or, where we have to go, what we're going to wear, what's on TV, what that person said about me, what that person did to me. That's what we're thinking about. Ask yourself, what is it that makes you most angry? What is it that makes you most sad? And look at your fear, because fear is an indicator of ultimate love. The thing that you're most afraid of, the thing that you're most afraid of losing. We have things in our life that we are terrified of losing. And actually just the thought of losing it can cause a physical reaction, like our heart will start pounding, we might start sweating, you might even get into a panic at the thought of losing that thing. You need to look at that. Every individual needs to look at their own heart and look at what is it really that I love most. And most of the time we will find that when we answer these questions, what am I thinking about all day? What's the first thing on my mind when I wake up in the morning? What keeps me up at night so I can't sleep? What keeps me from being able to eat? What's the last thing I think about before I sleep? What am I most afraid of? What makes me most angry? And you'll find that the answer to those questions has nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Typically, the answer to those questions are the gifts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do you see what's happening here? What's supposed to be on our mind most? It's our Creator. What's supposed to be the first thing we think about when we wake up in the morning? La ilaha illallah. The first thing you're supposed to say when you get up. But it's not what's on our mind. What's supposed to be the thing that we're most afraid of losing? It isn't supposed to be our money or our spouse or our children. It's supposed to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what have we done? We have taken these things, which were gifts, and we've put them in a place that only Allah should be. What's the result of doing that? Allah tells us in the Quran again and again, we hear about Jahannam. We know and we think about Jahannam as being something far away, right? Jahannam, hellfire. We think of it as being something far away. It's in the hereafter. Yeah, that torture and that torment is far away. But what we don't realize is that the torment and the torture of taking something other than Allah and loving it as you should only love Allah will torment you and torture you in this life before the next life. That same thing that answers all these questions, what am I think about most? What am I most afraid of losing? What makes me angry? What's the first thing on my mind? What do I think of in my salah? That same thing, whether it is your family, your kids, your husband, your status, your money, what's this person saying about me? What's that person saying about me? My image in front of people, what do people think? Whatever it is, that same thing will become the cause of your greatest pain and torment. You see how it works? Because you're not supposed, you're taking something, Allah has designed this universe in a specific way. Allah has designed the human heart in a specific way. When you change that design, when you go against that design, you feel the pain. Because you're going against the law of the universe. What is the law of the universe? La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah is not just a statement that we say. In fact, we say it many times a day, but it isn't just a statement. When you're saying La ilaha illallah, you are saying that there is nothing worthy of being put at the center of my life except for God. There is nothing else worthy of being what occupies my mind all day long. There's nothing else worthy of being the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning, the last thing I think about before I sleep, what occupies my mind during salah. There is nothing else worthy of being that important, of defining me in that deep of a way, except for God. That's Tawheed. That's what it means to be a Muslim. Allah has designed the world, the universe, the human being around La ilaha illallah. When you go against La ilaha illallah and you take your money and you make that your ilah, you will suffer because you're going against the law of the universe. When you take your spouse and you put your spouse in that place, you will suffer. When you take your children and you put your children in that place, you will suffer. You will feel it because you're going against the law of the universe. This isn't how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed it. Allah made our hearts in such a way that it is only to be filled by Him. And so when you fill something with a substance that it wasn't intended to be filled with, it breaks. When you go to the gas station and you need to fill up your gas tank, and you decide that today, you're not going to put gasoline in the gas tank, today you're going to put orange juice. Well, not a very smart decision, because what happens? What happens is your car is not going to work, and in fact you will break that car. When you fill the gas tank with orange juice, you're filling it with something that it was not designed to be filled with. Our hearts are the same. Our hearts are like a cup. And you can fill that cup with whatever you choose. But if you choose to fill it with this life, if you choose to fill it with dunya, if you choose to fill it with money, if you choose to fill it with status, if you choose to fill it with what people think, then that cup will break. That heart will never feel at rest. That heart will not feel peace until it is filled with what it was designed to be filled with. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the remembrance of Allah, not the remembrance of the creation. We should not be obsessing our minds and our hearts with anything other than our Creator. Now this brings us to the question of, well, what about all these roles that we have to play? We can't go and live in the mountains, and we can't just be in the masjid all day and all night. So how do we reconcile? See, Islam is the religion of fitrah, the religion of our nature. Islam is a religion of the middle way. It does not tell us ever to take extremes. So when we talk about filling the heart with Allah and nothing else, it does not mean that you don't get married and have children and have jobs and get involved and enjoy yourself. No, that's not what it means. It means that when you do have those things, they are in your hand and not in your heart. And there is a very, very deep difference between what you hold in your hand and what you hold in your heart. Because what you hold in your hand is something that you love and something that you enjoy, whether it is money or it is your husband or your wife or your children. But it does not become the center of your existence. It will not be what you think about all day. It will not be the first thing on your mind, the last thing on your mind, what makes you cry, what makes you happy, what makes you sad. No, that is for what's in your heart. So you understand here that what we have and we hold in our hand is something that we love, but something that we can ultimately live without. It means that when it is taken away from us, we don't crumble and die. We don't become so devastated that we can't find a purpose to continue to live. Lots of people have money, but they don't always hold it in the same place. Some people, we know there were companions who were rich, but they held their money in their hand and not in their heart. What does that mean? What does that look like? It means that if it is taken away, it isn't the end of that person's life. It doesn't devastate. There is a beautiful example of this. Abu Hanifa, radiallahu anh, one of the great scholars, he also had property, business, he had wealth. And while he was teaching one time, some people came to him and told him, your ships have sunk. So a portion of his wealth was presumably gone, lost. So what he did, rahmatullah alayh, is he paused. He was teaching, he paused, and then he said, Alhamdulillah, and then he continued teaching. A little while later, they came back to him and said, actually, we made a mistake. It wasn't your ships that sunk. So again, he paused. He said, Alhamdulillah, and then he continued teaching. So later on, when he was asked what that was about, he said that when first you told me that I lost my ships, I paused and I examined my heart, and I found it unmoved. And so I said, Alhamdulillah, that my heart was unmoved by that. And then the second time when you told me that I had not lost my ships, again I paused and I examined my heart and I found it unmoved. So I said, Alhamdulillah, that my heart was unmoved.